of different reasons. They both have done my show before. One's is named Enrique Tarrio. He's done this show before, and Enrique, the leader of the Proud Boys, he was sentenced to 22 years, convicted of sedition conspiracy. He took a pardon from Donald Trump, and he is obviously very pro Donald Trump. On the other side of it is Pam Hemphill, who's also done this show before. She was sentenced to 60 days in prison. She did not accept a pardon from Donald Trump, and since then she has been very anti-Donald Trump. And these two have been going back and forth on social media. I said, come on the show. Let's have a conversation today between the two of you, and let's talk about it. So I appreciate both of you for joining us. Thank you, both of you, so much for being here. Pam, let me start with you real quickly. So you guys have, and thank you both for being here. Pam, thank you for being here. Why is it that you guys are speaking up on social media and going at one another to an extent? What is your issue with Enrique?
Well, it's not just, it's all the J6 criminals. Once I realized that everything they were putting out there was propaganda, I felt that I had to push back with facts and my experience. So they happen to be one of them. And that's really all it is, because I push back on every single J6 criminal out there, and they know it.
Enrique, what would you say to that?
So first and foremost, thanks, Brian, for having me on. Thank you, Pam, for coming on. And my pushback to that is pretty simple. We're not criminals. I think that we had a weaponized justice system that worked against us, and Pam agreed with that assessment for a very long time, including after her arrest. She's come around, but I believe that she's come around multiple times. So my issue, I guess, with Pam online, is the thing is, if she was a Trump supporter at that time, what values did she have that were conservative? Because what I see is that there's not a single one that's left, in her assessment. So I think that she flip-flops, and I think that she got scared that she was going to do time, and she went against what her values were when she did go ahead and say that she did these things.
Go ahead, Pam.
No, I started the first J6 defendant space on X and brought in a lot of the J6 criminals and their families, and I was standing up for everyone, including the Proud Boys, with the disinformation that I had at the time. I didn't know. I was believing everything you guys were saying, and I found out that Ryan Samsel had his eye taken out in jail, and I said, that's not okay. That is not okay. So I did my own research because people had contacted me, and I knew I had numbers for the right people to find out the facts about this. Come to find out, he had lied, and that did it. So I took it back to the space, the mega space, and they all got on my butt, just like they always do when I question them. But I want to just make sure I say that I don't go back and forth. Go back to every video and every interview. I started 2 years ago. I haven't changed in 2 years. Show me where I've changed. Did I go back and forth? I haven't gone back and forth.
Enrique, you would agree that people can change their mind and maybe admit that they were wrong, and in life people can make mistakes and say, hey, you know what? I feel like I was wrong in doing that. You don't have a problem with that, do you?
I don't, and I think that's a common thing. That's a common thing. But when you talk about the core values of conservatism, right? You could, and I think we've gone back and forth with this on Twitter with Pam, but like which one of those remain? And I agree. There's some things that were egregious and some things that were overblown, right, by some people. I don't know this claim about Ryan Samsel, so I can't really comment on that. But like example, like Pam said that I probably deserved the amount of time and that we should still be locked up for 2 decades. I wasn't there that day, and I didn't plan on anything that happened that day. And another thing is, I think that the system, right, specifically the jury system in DC, I wouldn't wish that even on my worst opponent, even members of BLM and Antifa. I wouldn't want them to have a full Trump supporting jury because I think it would be unfair. And that's what happened to 100% of these J6 cases when you try them one of the most blue districts in the country. So I think that they were politically motivated charges, including the one that charged Pam. You know, I don't know what her charges exactly were, if they were just trespassing or whatnot. I don't know if she did any time for him, but I know a lot of people did the same thing Pam did and just walked in and out and got 4 years, 6 years, 7 years, and some over a decade for trespassing. So that's where I see it's wrong.
So, Pam, I want you to respond to that. Just quickly, I just wanted to ask you, Enrique, because you said something to start this interview. You said, we are not criminals. Surely
Yes.
you would agree with me that if you beat police officers on January 6th with some, I know you didn't do that, but there were some that pled guilty to, and there's video of them literally beating cops. I'm
Yes.
wondering how you define that as not being a criminal if you
Okay.
beat a police officer.
Yeah. So I've said this millions of times, and I've been really open about it, including on January 6th on that evening. If you put your hands on police officers, you should be charged with putting your hands on police officers. If you broke something, you should be charged. But what I was against wasn't the charges themselves. If you trespassed on private property, on public property, you should be charged with
I think
trespassing.
they were overcharged. I get your
I
point.
think they
But
were
can we-
overcharged. That's
I understand,
that's
but
my stance on it.
I understand, but can you so clarify then? Can we agree though? Those are criminals. If you beat a cop, pepper sprayed a cop, destruction of property, you might think they might have been overcharged. Okay, that's a conversation fair to have, but they're still criminals. Can we agree on that?
I could agree that that's wrong. Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay. But are they criminals?
wholeheartedly, I will tell you, those are
but-
crimes. So I won't use those words. If you bring one of those people in and ask them themselves if they're criminals, I'll let them answer for themselves. But when I speak, I could speak clearly about the 5 of us in the seditious trial amongst the 5 leaders of the Proud Boys.
Okay. All right, Pam. Fair enough, Pam. What would you like to say to respond to what Enrique had?
Well,
spoken
first,
to?
I need to understand what he means by core values. Can you be more specific?
Yeah, of course. So core values in conservatism, and I guess the mainstream, right, values of conservatism is like your nuclear family, your stance on abortion, your stance on guns and gun ownership, your stance on free speech. I think that those values are core values when it comes to conservatism, and obviously the rule of law and fair trials. And that's not what we saw. And I just don't see. One thing is it's fine to go ahead and, as both of you have done, criticize certain actions that people have taken that day. But what I don't see from you, Pam, is like, you don't question the trials, you don't question the jury, you don't question how the process worked for a lot of people. You know, I wouldn't be here. I actually wouldn't. I'd be exonerated if simply we would have changed venue from the DC venue, and I wouldn't be complaining as much about the system if we would have just taken it out of DC and put it somewhere where it was a little bit more politically neutral, because these are political cases. As a matter of fact, I'd say 11 of the 14 jurors that we had in our case have attended either the Women's March or a March for BLM in the DC area. That's like saying, you know, you have a gun case and then or one of these deportation cases, and you get a jury of all Trump supporters that all, like, they want to just deport everybody, which, I mean, I agree with, but I wouldn't want them on a jury.
Didn't all the defense attorneys have the right to question jurors that were picked? Didn't they all have an opportunity to question all those jurors that were in the pool?
Of course, but when the entire pool is already telling you that they cannot be, and in our case, that happened with 3 individuals that were sat, when those people are telling you that they cannot be fair, and then the judge brings them in the next day and rehabilitates them and asks them the same question, and they're like, okay, yeah, I could be, like, those people should have been.
There's a juror on the record that says I cannot be fair, and the judge allowed them to be on the jury.
Yes, and that happened not just in our case, but multiple cases.
I was unaware of that. My understanding is if a juror says I cannot be fair in this case, the judge doesn't try to convince them. They throw them out and they find somebody else. That's my understanding. But Pam, what is your understanding? Go ahead.
Well, there's so much to unpack there. So many things he went over. But that's typical to come up with these time blaming or coming up with something. Roger Stone, he had a lot of megas in his jury.
Mhm.
I just, I guess there's just a part of me, just the question you asked him, I don't think they were unfair. They looked at all the evidence. They don't have, they're not gonna, I just thought, I believe they had integrity. But we put out a lot of stuff. I went out, I mean, the mega, that is propaganda, telling us what they did, and we don't have any receipts. And that's what I did. I started looking for the proof, not just listening to what you said, Tarrio. I wanted to find out the facts about it because we're defensive. When my therapist said, "You still playing the victim role, you are guilty," and I don't care what your motive was that day, Pam, you had a choice. Everybody had a choice that day. But they keep trying to send a message and a narrative that the DOJ was weaponized them. The jury was not fair. Nancy Peroski started it, and I got receipts that she did not. If you do your research, she had nothing to do with it. On and on and on. I have the receipts on the doors were never opened by officers. Come on, and when you start getting the facts put in front of you, I felt like an idiot. I felt like they're just lying about everything. What are they putting out there that's facts? You know, and I got tired of it because I was standing up for the Proud Boys. I was standing up for the mega. And then when I started realizing, you know, that this is just their propaganda, trying to stay a victim with their ego and their pride, you know, and I had to get right with God.
Mhm.
And I knew, because I've been sober in AA now for 45 years, I knew I was wrong that day. I had no business being there, but Trump put us all in there with his lies and he planned it. He let it happen.
I-
And you're supporting Trump and grateful that he
What-
pardoned you.
Well, I want to add to that, Pam, if I may, Enrique, because I wanted to ask you something about what you said earlier. You had asked Pam about conservative values, right, Enrique?
course.
Do you think Donald Trump has conservative values? Because you had mentioned the nuclear family. He has 5 kids with 3 different women, unprotected sex with a porn star 2 weeks after Barron was born, a 34-count felon, a man who's never been faithful to one woman in his entire life. He has 25 women that have accused him of sexual abuse. Is that the nuclear family? I mean, do you think Donald Trump has conservative values? The same question I will ask you about Donald Trump that you're asking of Pam.
I do believe he does have conservative values. I think he's an imperfect person, and I think that's why he's a perfect candidate for the president of the United States. He's also a person that I truly believe that he believes in these values, and I truly believe that he does want to put America first, and that's what he's been doing for the past 3 months. Well, I think 4 months now.
But I hear this, Enrique. I hear the nuclear family. I hear that all the time, right? And maybe I'll give you another example. You know, let's talk about Elon Musk for a moment, and then I want to get back to Pam here and this discussion. But Elon Musk is a guy that plants his seed, for lack of a better term, all over the country. He's got kids all over the country. He uses X to impregnate them, pays them millions of dollars, goes away. He's not a father. But I don't hear conservatives or MAGA Republicans complaining about Elon Musk when it comes to this nuclear family. Now, I would disagree with you about Trump. I don't think he has a nuclear family. I think he has kids with multiple women. He cheats on pretty much every woman he's ever had. I don't think those are conservative values at all. But why is it that I don't hear anybody preaching nuclear family to Elon Musk when he has sex with these women, pays them off, and isn't a father? That's not nuclear family. Why don't I hear more about that from conservatives?
I think right now what you're seeing too is I won't tell you that Elon Musk is the perfect conservative, but I will tell you in his role in Doge, he's also that's where the focus is, and I think he's done an incredible job with Doge. I think he's I could be wrong about this, but he said he's stepping down from that role today, which
Right. Well. Listen, Enrique.
regardless
how
of the
is-
fact, if
yeah.
we're gonna if like nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. Nobody makes every single decision. What his decision was on divorcing Donald Trump divorcing his previous wife, not my problem. He's not there to be supermodel citizen, but he is doing his job as president, and he's doing a great job as president.
Okay, I hear what you're
Regardless of
saying.
the fact, like your values, as like your core, those core values, and that's why I asked that of Pam, is that which one of those core values remain? Because I could tell you, look, I'm not the perfect conservative, and I've made mistakes. I've made numerous mistakes, and you know, I'm on my way to be on my 4th marriage. But so yes, people make mistakes, but those values, you want those values and you support those values, and you make mistakes along the way. But which one of those conservative values does she still hold?
Yeah, Pam, I want you to
I don't see a
respond to
single,
that.
I don't see a single one.
Yeah, I want Pam to respond to that. I just want to quickly respond to what you said. Never have I ever said that anybody's perfect. Yes, we all make mistakes. I guess the people that I have a problem with, Enrique, with respect, talking about the nuclear family, I have a problem listening to those people who support a man who's an adjudicated rapist, who support a man who's been not faithful to one woman his entire life, who seem to think Elon Musk is this great guy when he can't even spell nuclear family. I guess that's the issue that I have. That Donald Trump, the president of the United States today, at least to me anyway, has treated women terribly his entire life. He's the opposite of the nuclear family. And I'm not saying anybody's perfect. Sure, people make mistakes, but I think there's a fine line to be making mistakes and then somebody preaching nuclear family who has how many ex-wives, who's cheated on how many women, who's a terrible father. Elon Musk isn't a father to all these kids. And yet I hear all these MAGA Republicans that are preaching nuclear family that won't say one word negative about Elon Musk. I find that to be hypocrisy at its finest. But anyway, go ahead, Pam. Go ahead.
Well, I believe in live and let live, and I think some of these things we consider values or morals has nothing to do with the law. I never would have had an abortion. I totally against it.
Mhm.
Not for me. I had a family member that had two, and it's okay. I love her, and I didn't judge her.
Yeah.
I do not agree with the guns, the assault weapons. I will push back on that one if I can. And there's a lot of things I'm not for. However, the Constitution isn't about Pam and Pam's values and Pam, how she thinks everybody else should be living. It's for me to take my own inventory and live the life that I think God would want me to be living. However, when it comes to coming up with bills like they did here in Boise, Idaho, trying to take down, the mayor has decided not to take down the pride flag, and you think it should be taken down, well, that's your choice, that's your decision. But to start making laws that don't fit our country is wrong. Thank God Rosa Parks did the right thing. That was not should never have been a law. But as far as values, I'm back to the same thing, live and let live, do what's right, be kind and considerate to other people, be forgiving. But some of this political stuff that's going on, and what if a woman should not be illegal to have an abortion, is insane, because it's not my place to decide what's right for you to do with your body. It's not my decision what if you want to carry a gun or not carry a gun. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I could go on and on, but I
But
live my life under spiritual principles.
so to touch on, I mean, to touch on live and let live and wanting to put more gun laws. There's 22,000 gun laws in this country. How many gun laws are going to keep Americans safe? Is it 44,000? Is it 88,000? Can we keep doubling that? And the problem is that we keep putting people in prison for their constitutional right to carry, and assault weapons.
Give me an example.
That
Who's
term.
been in prison for that?
Well, actually, I've been in the federal prison system for about 3 years, and Ethan, which is sitting across from me right now, was in the federal prison for 4 years. Most of the people that you talk to there are there for what's called the 922G, and it's the bread and butter for prosecutions, and it's why we have such a large prison population. And it's felon possession of a firearm. Most of those felons are nonviolent. When you are a nonviolent felon, you should have your gun rights restored to you.
Well, that's your
I'm
opinion.
I'm a bit no. That's the opinion
Okay, so
of the second constitutional amendment that says shall not be infringed.
With a
Um,
well-regulated militia.
there's a comma there, but regardless of the fact, we're putting people in prison for victimless crimes. And if we're going to talk about the Black community too, it imprisons Blacks a lot more than it imprisons any other race. And that to me is not a race issue. It is an issue that we keep making these laws that put people behind
All right.
bars.
Well, let me ask you, when it comes to weapons, Enrique, then let me ask you. You once ran for office yourself, actually. So let me ask you this then. What are your solutions? We have more gun violence in this country than almost any other country in the world, and we have more weapons in this country than almost any other country in the world. So what are your solutions then?
My solution is simple. I'll go back to my 22,000 gun laws in this country, take off every single one, because this isn't a problem that you could legislate away. The perfect example is the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia has one of the strictest gun laws in the country, but it has the highest gun crime, one of the highest gun crime rates that you'll see in the country. So the problem isn't a legislative issue. The problem is a cultural issue. You you can't keep trying to fix cultural problems with legislation and pushing for more gun laws. So that's why I asked Pam what was her position before this on these so-called assault weapons.
Well, there was an
Well,
assault. Well, I just want to quickly interact. There was an assault weapons ban during the Clinton years, and gun violence went way down. And then Republicans allowed that to fizzle out. And there's evidence to prove that there was more violence in this country when it comes to weapons when that bill fizzled out. I just wanted to hear one solution. I know you said that it's a culture thing. Okay, what do we do about it? What do we do about this culture thing? I mean, I can give you a number of different solutions. Let's raise the age to 18 to 21. Just like driving a car, you should have to do the same thing with a weapon. They should check your eyesight, your mental acuity, know how to use the weapon. I think that's another thing we should do. I think red flag laws need to be stronger. I think there's a lot of things we can do that wouldn't be the end all, Enrique, but I do think it would
Red
solve some
flag
issues.
laws have proven not to do anything.
Well, because they're not enforced in a lot of different situations, and it's a
Well, in blue
case by
states,
case
they're
basis. It depends on the situation, I think, right? But if in this country, Enrique, as you know, if somebody threatens somebody's life, sure, they could go to jail for that. But in some states, the next day they can purchase a weapon. I have a serious problem with that. I'm not saying pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I don't like my neighbor. Let me call the police and let me tell say something so their weapons get taken away." No, of course not. But I think there's a lot of things we can do to help prevent more of these horrible situations from happening. Go ahead, Pam.
well, I'm not abreast with all the laws for guns. I know in Project 2025, they want to make it possible that you can open carry in any state. So that way they can call all your militias out anytime they want, right? Anyway, go to a Tesla protest and have the Liberty Dogs come out with their ARs, and we're bringing signs, and their propaganda is that we're burning, cars, and it has nothing to do with this. We're just protesting. How would you feel? People are standing there across from you with these weapons. We got the officers there. We don't need you with your weapons. So that kind of stuff, and what you and the Proud Boys did. Go out there with your weapons and fighting people. You don't even know that a lot of those fires with the Black Lives Matter weren't even created by them. I've done some research. I found out some facts about the Black Lives Matter. So you guys got the whole narrative wrong. Shame on you for what you did. I watched these videos. You guys started so many fights. See, I have been told that you were the heroes. You were there to make sure that nobody would beat up women and harm children. No, you guys were the instigator. And that's what upset me when I found out facts and watched some videos. So there's a lot to talk about gun laws. But I'm not schooled in that area, but I am joining the organization to hopefully ban these ARs and these assault weapons. I want to be
Enrique,
a part of that.
respond to that, Enrique. She just said that members of the Proud Boys and you guys instigated, and respond to that.
Okay, so let's start to unpack some of the stuff here. So first, you said that the burning of Teslas definitely not started by Trump supporters. I will concede I have been to these Tesla protests, and they've been rather peaceful down here in South Florida. The actual protests at the actual Tesla dealerships have been peaceful. There has been some cases of scuffles and stuff like that, but nothing major. But the burning of Teslas and Tesla dealerships is something that we're seeing, and it's not coming from Trump supporters. When it comes to, she didn't answer my question about what was her stance beforehand on the Second Amendment during her conservatism little streak that she had. And then to say that we come out armed to these Tesla protests, that for one, that doesn't happen. And two, the only time that the Proud Boys have ever come out armed to an event is if we're doing like a Pro 2A rally, like if you see Virginia does it at Richmond, it's called Lobby Day, and Virginia's an open carry state, and everybody comes out with their ARs, and it's always been a very, very safe event. I don't know if they still hold them, but they used to do it every January 17th or 18th or around there. The Proud Boys have protected women and have protected rally goers everywhere that we go. And we have been probably the number one providers for security for these events. So what we do is not pretty, but sometimes what we do is necessary at these events, because as she says that she doesn't like violence at these events, I'd go ahead and say, well, what does she think about Antifa? What does she think about like these specific BLM groups, or people that preach these BLM, that were in Portland throwing rocks and bricks and at Trump supporters? So I just don't understand how somebody flips a switch this way. And again, I'm going to say that I think it's because the fear of going to prison changed her. And I think that
No,
fear didn't change. It wasn't that she changed her values or she saw the light. I think the reality of being put in a prison is
I
is
was
what
in prison.
drives her today.
I
And
was in
people
prison.
back against
Did you
her.
know?
She didn't
Do you
like it.
know that? You do know I
I'm
was in
sorry.
prison for 60 days. I went to prison for
Oh,
60 days.
well, the fear, what I'm saying is the fear of being in prison longer
There was
is
no
where.
longer 60 days period, black and white.
No,
There
yeah,
was
because
no
you signed a
longer.
plea deal, but before that, you were
Well,
a big Trump supporter,
what
and
am
then
I supposed to
after
do? Go to
that,
court and say I was not, it's legal for me to be trespassing? I was guilty. That's why I pleaded guilty.
what were your excuse and here I'm not again. I haven't caught up with your case. What were you charged with?
There was 4 charges and it went down to picketing and parading because
Okay,
I got inside the Capitol.
okay.
I could have
So
left.
there's a lot of people that did exactly. So what's your position on people that did exactly what you did, um,
The
and
Capitol was
they're doing
closed that
40.
day, Tarrio. It was
No, no,
closed to the public.
I'm not saying that the Capitol was open for business. I'm saying the people that did exactly what you did and
Mhm.
got 4 years to 6 years or 7 years in some cases for doing the same exact thing that you did.
No, I don't think so. I think if we look at the
Good.
cases, especially Brian could debate you on that one, because that's what
Mhm.
I would listen to, and then I would believe you. But when I do the research and got my critical thinking back, I found out that what you said just now is not true. They had other things that went on
I can,
besides going in the Capitol. You leave out that other information. You say they were in there with just like you, and you got 2 months and they got 4 years. BS on that one. Because
uh,
give me the case, let's research it and see what else they were charged with.
I'll give
Let's
you
see if they
multiple
got the same
cases.
cases as me.
I'll give you the multiple cases of people just walking in and getting at the very least 4 years. Um, there's multiple of my guys which got multiple year sentences, and they didn't put their hands on a police officer. They didn't break anything. They walked in and walked out, and some of them for just a couple minutes, and they did get 4 years. So
Can you give
that
me a name?
I
I'll
will.
look it
I
up.
will after this. Actually, you're going to be joining us tomorrow on the podcast, and I will bring those receipts
I like to
to you.
research it.
But yeah, I will tell you, I will be bringing the receipts because there's many people that did not put their hands on police officers, and they got the 1512 charge.
Mhm. And
Obviously, I think
what is
that
that charge again?
that is obstructing an official proceeding, which the Supreme Court
See,
found that
there you go. There you
constitutional.
go. That's why. Because it
But
was proven that they did. There you go.
it's
I mean,
proven.
I know this
But
might
if
sound.
they did the same thing as you did, how did they obstruct? Did
I
you
wasn't
obstruct an
trying, I
official
was on the
proceeding?
other side of the Capitol. I wasn't trying to instruct anything. I didn't even know
But
it
you
was
went
the
into the
transfer of
Capitol.
power was going on. I got pushed
Did
in.
you?
I'm not going to excuse.
Were you trying to stop the steal?
Stop the steal.
Yeah. Were you
How do
trying
you
to
stop?
stop the
No,
stolen?
every time I would ask everybody about where's the evidence that the election had been stolen, they would gaslight me and say Democrats have been trying to steal the election forever. Now we know that it
I
was
don't.
not stolen. And Trump even was told by those
Oh,
around him
I'm
that
not
the
talking about
election had
Trump.
not been stolen, but he went ahead and kept lying
Did you?
anyway.
So why? So I don't want to be the interviewer here, but like, why were you then? Why were you there that day? Did you think the
I
election
had
was
been
stolen?
brainwashed by Ammon Bundy and the mega group, and they didn't call it mega back there. because I'm naive. You guys put it in my head that the Democrats are trying to turn this into a communist nation, and that scared me. You know, I'm
That's not-
72. No president would ever lie about election being stolen, but Trump did because
But
he's
you
a
believe?
cult leader.
Did you
He's
believe it?
brainwashed a lot of people, including you, by saying they're coming after me, but they're really coming after you to make you believe the DOJ is weaponized against
So let's
us.
step
And
into.
that is false.
Did she freeze?
Go ahead.
They were
think
not
she's-
coming after me.
Oh, there you
And that's
go.
what Trump said when he read my case. Oh, horrible. Because they compared
What-
me with
We're not
Hunter
talking about
Biden.
Trump. I want to talk about Pam. Did you believe that the election was stolen that day, and was that the reason that you were there?
I was on the fence back and forth. Yes, because you're listening to people with 2 PhDs that you really care about and
Okay.
trust, and they're
So-
lying to you.
So why did you go into the Capitol that day if you knew you weren't supposed to?
Well, I've been doing videos throughout Boise for a long time, and I like doing videos. That's what I do. So
Okay.
stupid me got in front of the door. I saw 2 officers, and I thought, let me ask them if we're going to be allowed to get in there. But I got shoved in. It sounds
Okay.
like an excuse, but it's not.
I get
When
it.
I got in, I said I got shoved in. I sat down and I asked an officer to
You got
help me
shoved
get out.
into the Capitol, like
The
from
people
to
behind
the
me, I'm
door?
not used to crowds. They were pushing everybody in.
So I'll give you the example. So you weren't there to stop the steal.
Well, how in the hell would you stop the steal? I don't know what you're talking about. Stop the
No,
steal.
well, I'm saying like Trump.
Yes.
In your allocution, you said that you were there because Trump, basically because you believed that Trump told you to do this or that. So like you were there to record or you were there to
To support.
you were there to record. So I could give you one case right now, and his name is Sam, and he was a reporter for InfoWars, and he also got sentenced to more time than you. There was a whole bunch of people under the same banner that did that, but the law wasn't equal with them. So what I have a hard time understanding is you're accepting responsibility for your actions that day, but now you're saying that you were just there to record. So these
It
two
doesn't
things,
matter,
not,
but it doesn't
there's no
matter.
nexus there.
Right,
Not
but it
just record, but
Right,
that's what I do.
but here's a distinction. First of all, Pam is owned to what she did. She did not accept a
Yes.
pardon. She admitted what she did was wrong. She's owned
Yeah.
it. She said she was radicalized to an
But
extent.
she's not owning it now.
Only
Well,
one. I'm
yes,
confused.
she has. Pam, go ahead. You've always owned what you did was wrong, right, Pam?
No, but she's changing what her allocution was compared to what she's saying now, is what I'm saying.
No, I was explaining why I went to the front of the door because I wanted to videotape what was going on by the door. That's all I'm saying. No, I was full mega if there was a mega. I wanted to go inside the Capitol. I kept asking
what?
even the Proud Boys, are they going to go inside? I want to be with you.
And what did the
Because I
Proud
thought
Boys
you were,
respond to you when you said,
well,
"Are we
I
gonna
thought
go-"
you guys were going to be there to protect Trump, secondary, and I wanted to be there videotaping. That's what I do. And I wanted to watch it and see Trump, I was all excited. And one of your camera people said, yeah, a few are planning on going on side. And I got that clip on my video. It was your camera woman. She said, yeah. I said, I want to go inside with them. She says, well, some are planning on going inside.
But let me just interject real quickly.
ahead.
Because I think we're getting in the weeds a little bit here.
Okay.
Pam owned what she did, whether she was trying to record it, whether it was her intention to be there. She shouldn't have been there. She owned it. She did her time. Now she's anti-Trump. She has a right to be anti-Trump, just like you have the right to support Trump, Enrique. But the difference is she's owned what she did. She said she's sorry for what she did. And I think a distinction between you two, Enrique, is you have not apologized really for anything. You said you were sorry that there was violence that day, but you haven't apologized for anything you did. And you've made it sound like you're completely innocent and you did absolutely nothing wrong. And you can talk about how you felt like you were overcharged, and there were a lot of people there that you felt like were overcharged. But the reality of the situation is
I don't think I was overcharged. I feel like I didn't do anything wrong. So yeah, in that assessment, you're 100% correct. Obviously, this is an obvious statement. I wasn't there. Did I celebrate the things that happened that day? Obviously. And
what did you celebrate about? What did you celebrate about?
I celebrated what happened that day. Yes, I did. And I celebrated.
You celebrated everything that happened that day?
Yes, I did. As I saw it coming.
So even police officers
hold on a second. We spoke about this on the last podcast, and I told you as information was coming in, that's why I was celebrating, because I didn't know exactly what was going on as the day progressed. Then later on is when I saw things, and then I was very clear. I'm going to say it again on January 6th at night. I was very clear to those that trespassed. You should get hit with trespassing. To those that put hands on police officers. So I've been very clear on my assessment. But yes, I am very unapologetic about what I did, because I didn't do what I was accused of doing. I was
What was good
accused of
about what happened that
orchestrating.
day? Name me one thing that you thought was good about what happened on January 6th.
I'm going to tell you this. I think that America was born on rebellion. And I think that what happened that day was people that were pissed off for a long time, seeing things. And I think if I were to describe January 6th in one word, is accountability. I think that that was a day that the people held their elected officials accountable. Now,
For what? What did they do wrong?
Two things. Well, here's
What should they be held accountable for? What did they do wrong? Count the votes correctly? Certify a free and fair election? What did they do wrong?
So I'm going to tell you that, and I told you this on the last podcast on my feelings on that day. I think that that was a culmination of the previous more than 4 years of the government putting their necks, their boots on the American people's necks. And I think the American people grew tired. I think
the previous
that
4 years, Donald Trump was
that's
president.
why I went beyond the 4 years.
Yeah.
I think people were tired of it. And I believe that I'm going to start with this. The government colluded with social media companies to silence our voices, right? And this is a true fact. We've seen those emails happen.
They didn't collude. They just made recommendations. I think there's a difference.
That's collusion. If the government should never even think about infringing on Americans' free speech, whether it's to pressure or recommend knocking people off the platform.
Donald Trump just said he wanted. Donald Trump said he wanted. Donald Trump has been. So are you just as upset at Donald Trump calling vermin and the enemy of the people, members of the media, wanting people at CBS to go to jail because he doesn't like what they have to say? Does that bother you?
Let me tell you something. The lockdowns, here's another thing. The lockdowns, the COVID lockdowns, the summer of love that Pam says that wasn't BLM. And the inaction from